Welcome to Reality, the show for teens, by teens, about teens. I'm JK, and I'm not kidding, and I'm your host. Today we'll be covering a slightly heavier topic, bullying. Bullying is one of the biggest problems across all three major grade levels, grammar school, high school, and college, and today I have brought together three guests who are willing to share their story. I'm joined today by Isa Cava, Isabella Ramirez, and Alex Sherling. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
Now, as you guys all know, we are here today to talk about bullying, and I've got to say, having three people on to tell their stories has got to be one of the bravest things that I know. I know that telling a bullying story has got to be really hard, but we all know that it's going to help everyone out there to better understand what's going on. I was supposed to have another guest on tonight, but they wished to remain anonymous. But I promised them that I would interview them and share their story. So I will share it as if it's my own story and say what he had to say on the matter. This friend of mine was bullied starting in the 5th grade, and he really didn't have many friends growing up, and he always felt like, he was outside of the main circle of people in his grade. And that's gotta be really hard for someone, He said that in 7th grade, he got beat up behind his school, and, you gotta feel bad for someone who's so tormented that he can't even share his story in front of other people. That's gotta be hard. He said that, he had issues with self-harm, and that he's been seeing a therapist ever since 7th grade. But he said he's, taking the right steps. He has advice for everyone out there. He wants everyone to know that, the best thing you could do, even if you aren't okay with publicizing it, is sharing your story with people. Mm-hmm. Because by sharing your story, you get all that pressure that you're building up in yourself out in the open. He also says that, to any bully out there, you shouldn't do it. Because bullying is bad.
Absolutely.
And just don't do it.
Totally.
Now, before we started the show, I asked them all what order they're most comfortable with speaking in. So we are going to start with Isa.
Hi. I never really had many friends. I had 2 friends by the time I was 8, and that was partly because I had moved from Washington, D.C. to New York when I was about 5, and it doesn't seem like that much of a difference. But I had a lot of friends when I was in preschool I thought would last forever since I was young. But by the time I was in 3rd grade, none of my friends were in my class, so I knew I was going to have a hard year from there. I always tried to make friends and be optimistic and think oh, everyone's nice, they're all going to want to be my friend, I'm going to try to be nice and funny, like what 3rd graders think is funny. But a lot of people didn't like me, and I didn't know why. They called me in 3rd grade, this was horrible. Now this would be horrible, but they called me ugly and just stupid, and it was 3rd grade, and I just couldn't understand why they would ever call me that. And I didn't want to make trouble for my family or make a big deal out of it, so I didn't tell them. And these 2 girls one day approached me and were like, "Hey, do you want to be our friend?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, people want to be my friend. This is great." And for a while, I didn't really know what a friend was at that point. And they made me think a friend was someone who gave you money on the daily without paying you back, which was weird for a 3rd grader. But and do your homework and get them everything for them while they don't include you in conversations. And then one day, by the end of the year, they basically said hey, we never really liked you. We just kind of wanted you to do stuff for us. So don't really hang around us anymore. And it was really hard for me because I thought they were my friend. I thought that we could someday be best friends forever or something. And it was just really, since I didn't feel like telling my friends since I wasn't close enough to them, and I didn't feel like telling my family, and I felt like I had to keep it inside. So for like the rest of the year, everyone knew me as that one girl who got like fooled and shouldn't have like just believed them and was just stupid for believing them. So for the next year, I didn't really think I should try making friends because I was just kind of like, I'm done with it. I'm not gonna make friends. They're just gonna not like me. And in fourth grade, about halfway through the year, at that point, like I just kind of didn't talk to anyone, got ignored, just didn't try. And Isabella moved from Florida and into my class. And when we started talking, I was like, I'm just gonna pretend all that stuff from before did not happen. Just pretend everything from up to this, like up to when I was born to up to now, just didn't happen, none of it. And I pretty much forgot about it and just kind of focused on that friendship. And it was really good for a while. People still bullied me and called me names, and I've had a lot of bad experiences with that, which I'm talking about later. But it was better having a friend who was in my class who could be like, hey, they're just being stupid, and she wasn't friends with any of the people who like bullied me. So and everything she said I felt like was genuine, and I felt like I could believe her, which was a big thing for me. And I was so glad I had made this friend. And finally, by the end of fifth grade, I had like 3 friends maybe, and I was pretty cool with that. And I was like, okay, all the bullying from elementary school, that's over with. I'm going to middle school. I'm gonna be 12. I'm gonna be a big kid now. And everything's gonna change, and everyone's gonna like me, and it's all gonna be great. And when I got to my 6th grade class, it seemed like they had already made a pact just to not like me. I'm sure they probably didn't have good reasons at all in the first place, but they all just kind of ignored me or called me names. And even when I tried to help other people who were being called names by other people in our class, they just acted like I was the one at fault here and that I shouldn't have spoken up in the first place. And when I tried to tell teachers about it, they were like, oh yeah, we'll do something, and then they would never go through with it. And then I tried to tell my family, and they did everything they could. They wanted to help, they wanted to make a difference, they wanted to stop this. And they couldn't. They did as much as they could, but the school just wasn't cooperative. And by 7th grade, I had just completely given up with like making friends. Like for the second time, I was just done. I didn't want to try, and I thought just like the rest of my life was going to be like this. Like there will always be people who will call me ugly and stupid and annoying. There will always be people like that. And at that point, I felt like, well, if so many people call me this, they must be right. I mean, like dozens of kids have called me this. I mean, it must mean they're right. So I started to feel like kind of like worthless, and like I wasn't really good enough. And I pretty much spent my 7th grade year like that, just kind of on my own. I probably could have made friends if I tried, because the people in my class were nice and never called me names, but I just never tried. By the time I was in 8th grade, I had quite a few friends up to that point. I was kind of confident about myself, and I had learned more about like bullying and how it affected people. So I was pretty much kind of over it, and I got a whole new group of friends who were there for me every day, really nice. I'm still friends with some of them today. And I was like, okay, this last year of middle school, it'll be fine. And there was this one tiny kid who, like, first times I met him, like, he seemed nice, and then he just started calling me names, like, he started calling me, like, whore, bitch, like, all these horrible names. And even though I told other people, like, oh, I don't care, I'm used to it, it still really hurt, because, like, I thought I was over that. I thought by the time I was in 8th grade, I had, like, gotten my personality down. I was pretty much set on who I was, and there was still this one person who hated me. And when he found out I was Jewish, he started calling me like Junos, like all these anti-Semitic stuff, called my friend Brian a Jew lover, just horrible things that that nobody should say, let alone an 8th grader. And I didn't feel like telling the teachers. And all my friends were like, oh, you should just tell a teacher. But then when they told me that, I knew they'd never been bullied, because when you tell a teacher, that had never worked. The teachers had never done anything. The teachers never cared. And I just thought it just wouldn't work, and just kind of gave up, would be a waste of breath, not going to try it. And finally got caught one day passing a note about me, calling me like Junos, all those horrible things. And I had to go down to the office and tell them what had happened and what he did. And my parents only found out what he had said to me because of that. Like, a teacher called them and told them. And they were kind of disappointed that I hadn't told them, but it was for the same reason. I thought it would just be a waste of breath, that nothing could be done. And they were like, okay, we talked to his parents. They seemed appalled, so he's probably being punished. And we're going to punish him by sitting him at a different table at lunch, which was the only time when he saw me. And they sat him at a different table for a day. And then the next day, he just moved back to my table and kept doing the same thing. And they were like, well, there's nothing else we can do. I suggested maybe detention, or finding out why he's doing this, finding out what makes him feel like he needs to do this. And they said, we can't do that. That's not our problem. What we're going to do is try to encourage you to just do the best you can to get over it. And I mean, I'm past that. I'm in 10th grade now, and I haven't been bullied since, but it just seemed like the school didn't care. And it just seemed like this whole group of adults who keep saying, like, bullying stops here. It shouldn't be in the hallways. It shouldn't be coming from one person to another. It shouldn't be online. Just apparently couldn't do anything when it was actually happening and being presented to them. I felt really bad because there were other kids in the school who were getting bullied worse than I was, who weren't as used to it, who it was totally new to them, and they didn't know what to do about it. And that I knew that the teachers wouldn't do anything, because I knew the school, I knew the teachers, I knew how they would react, and they would try, but it wouldn't work. And I'm still just wondering how my school is handling it now, but, you know. It's the most I can really say.
Well, Issa, do you have any advice for people who are currently being bullied?
Even though it didn't work for me, I say telling a teacher and telling your parents is a good thing to do. And sometimes it can do something. Sometimes teachers do actually have something to do that can stop this. So I say do that. And they always say, like, to just ignore them, they'll stop doing it, but that didn't work for me or anybody I know. So I'm not sure what you should do, but ignoring them is just, it makes them know that you don't want to acknowledge them, so they'll just try harder to be acknowledged. So, I mean, that's what I've seen. So just try to stick with the friends you have, and if you trust them, tell them what's happening and confide in them, and you'll probably feel a little bit better about it, telling other people.
Good advice. Now, Isabella, I know you have your own story to tell.
Yeah. I didn't really experience bullying until I was probably in the 4th grade. I lived in Florida. I moved to Florida when I was like 5, and everything was perfect there. Everyone liked me. My mom was a teacher, so no one could be mean to me because, you know, elementary school teacher is like a big deal. And then some health things came up where we had to go to New York and watch my grandparents, and we ended up having to stay here. And I got put into my zone elementary school. I don't know how elementary schools work, but I went there, and some kids from preschool were there, and I loved it there when I met my friends. And then I had a teacher, I can't remember her name. She was mean, awful. She would scream at everyone for absolutely nothing. So it affected me so badly that I asked to be put into a new school, and that's when I eventually met Issa. I met her in the middle of the year because I couldn't handle being with that teacher anymore. So when I went there, I don't remember that much. I am a star repressor. Something bad happens, it goes deep, deep down to a fine wine somewhere here. It's just put away. But I I remember going and not having any friends. I knew no one there, but the teachers were nice. So I was like, okay, I can handle this. The teachers are what matter. They are the ones who are giving me my education. Perfect. Met Issa. I became friends with her. I remember I made a couple friends here or there. I really don't remember them either. But I met a couple kids in my school who I can't recall why, or I never gave them a reason. They just didn't like me because I existed. That's the only possible reason I can think of. I appeared there in their zone. And they just were awful to me. They loved calling me ugly. I was always, as a child, complimented for my intelligence and my beauty and, the things you tell little kids to make them feel good about themselves. So that's what I had, like, this pristine image of student of the month, every month, perfect little kid who was now being told by people who just met her how worthless and ugly and stupid she was constantly. And it was a big change, and I didn't understand it, but I was like, whatever, the teachers are nice. I can totally handle some 10-year-old, whatever. But it became a daily thing where I would sit down, they'd say something, they'd stand up, they'd say something, they'd look at me, they'd have something to say. Everything just wasn't good enough for some kids who felt like they were so superior for absolutely no reason. I just remember, so you know how school lunch is the nastiest thing you will ever see in your entire life? And they would give us these fries that would have these big boils of oil.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really, really general, right? And I don't know why. Their favorite thing to do was to pick it up and they'd be like, oh, this is your birthmark. This is what you look like. You look exactly like this nasty, oily fry. I don't know why. Being compared to some French fry hurt me. But I did not like that, especially since I had made friends with one of them. He was nice enough. He was nice to me when he wasn't with his friends, and he didn't really look comfortable when they were mean to me. But I remember whenever they'd compare me to French fry, he would jump right in because that was so funny. French fry, stupid. And they really liked to comment on my appearance. I was never really confident in my appearance. I knew I was pretty, but I never felt pretty. Mostly because I was Latina. That was a big thing for me. I grew up. Let's see. I grew up in Florida. There were no Latinas, no Asians. It was either you're white or you're black, and other. Like, there was nothing else. I grew up in like this tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, and I distinctly remember time having a crush on this like white kid. He was like, so ugly. Oh my god. I don't know why I liked him. He was ugly. He was like 2 feet tall, and I remember he found out I liked him. And I remember distinctly, we were walking into my 2nd grade classroom. He turned around, looked at me, and went, I only like girls with blonde hair and blue eyes, and walked dead into the classroom and closed the door behind him. And that like stuck with me until current. I'm feeling better about myself about being Latina now. I'm forcing myself to because I can't change that, and I'm glad that I can't change that. But that really bothered me, so I was never really super comfortable with my skin, so it's like, it'll be okay. There was one specific one who, I don't know why he hated me. Like, I don't know why any of them hated me. I tried my best to be nice to them. I am a very big believer in be nice to everyone, and I'm a very big forgiver, where it's like, you could literally like stab me in the stomach. I'll be like, it's okay, you dropped it into my organs, don't worry. Like, I was just like, it'll be okay. It doesn't matter. Who cares? And then one of them tried to like test me one day. I remember that he would hit me sometimes, but it was never like a beat up, like nothing that you think of as bullying. I didn't think of as bullying it, because I didn't like to think about it mainly. But he one day I don't remember who I was talking to. I was in the middle of a conversation, and then something just flew into my face, and it hurt so badly. It was like bleeding a little bit. I bit myself. Apparently the kid was a couple feet away from me and kicked a soccer ball full speed into my face to see if I would cry. That was the goal, to see if I'd cry. I didn't cry because I didn't want to see him cry, and all I heard was like, I walked by to go to the nurse because I was bleeding. He was like, oh, yo, she didn't cry, man. Yo, like, it didn't make sense to me why they would do that, and for some reason, he almost sounded like he respected me that I didn't cry. And I don't know why. I was like, okay, he's not going to do that because now he knows I'm tough. And he just kind of, from that point, just inched a little more to see how tough I was. And I felt like I had to prove how tough I was. And they would, like, maybe hitting their friends. I'd be like, that doesn't hurt. And they'd be like, oh, really? And they'd start, like, hitting me with it. I'm like, no. And I'd be hurting, and I'd be like, nah, you guys are just weak. And it's gotten to this point where just like, if I pretend I'm strong enough, it doesn't matter. If I just pretend that I'm strong enough, then I will be strong enough, and I'll be good. I never thought about telling my parents. I never thought about telling my teachers. Like I said, my mom was a teacher, so I've always had, I guess because like, the fear everyone has about their parents like getting in trouble, I guess since my mom was a teacher, that passed on to my teachers of me being afraid to talk to my teachers about like things that are a little private. My mother is fantastic, don't get me wrong. I never wanted to be a problem. Like I said, I was the star student, the student of the month every month. I never wanted to be a problem. So I never told anyone. My teachers found out because it's hard not to find out when someone's being called ugly every day, and when the star student starts getting 70s instead of 90s and starts talking to people. Like I said, I tried to be social, but it was hard to be social when people don't like you. So I had a little bit of a voice, and they stole it from me. They took the only thing I had. There was like one specific thing that, like I said, Issa mentioned, me and Issa went to the same elementary, middle school, and then we go to different high schools now, but we're still together. But we were bullied by the same people because they were like big, what's a word that's not a curse, kahunas? Oh, yeah, that thing, of the school. So when she and I became friends, I saw that she was getting harassed. I didn't really know to what extent. Actually, some of these stories I only found out recently. I'm a very motherly person, and I saw it as if I can help someone, if I can make someone feel better, if I can make a friend in it, and if I can prevent her from being hurt, I will do anything that I can. And one day, she and I were walking in the lunch. Do you want to tell this together? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so there was this one kid, not going to name names. I'm just going to call him A. And like he had been bullying me all year, both of us. And he had kicked me and hit me, just not like regularly. And I thought one day, like, you know what, I'm a nice person, but I'm just going to do this one thing. I'm going to flick him. Because, after 6 months of bullying, a flick is nothing.
You didn't flick him. You touched him with your notebook.
No, I didn't.
You walked by him in the lunchroom and touched him with your notebook. You said.
No, okay.
I remember.
So I decided to tap him. With what? I don't know. But, we were a few feet away from him. And I kind of thought nothing of it. I'm just going to sit down, eat lunch. And I just hear something slam down on the cafeteria table. And I turn around, he's standing up, his notebook just was on the table in his hands, and his face was all red, and he was like, I'm going to hit you. And he had that notebook, just his knuckles were turning red by how hard he was grasping it. And he full on ran towards me, and I didn't know what to do. I wasn't a strong kid mentally or physically at the time. So I had no idea what I was going to do. This kid looked like he wanted me, like, dead. So I had no idea what to do. I just ran to the end of the cafeteria, or as far as I could, and I was just up against the table, cornered, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I kind of just closed my eyes, just hoping it was, like, not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. And suddenly it just stopped. Like, nothing happened. And I was really confused. I was really scared to open my eyes, thinking like, oh, maybe it's just he just decided to wait or something. And I opened my eyes, and Isabella's standing in front of me. And I'm already crying at this point out of fear, and I only remember really seeing her back and being pushed up against the table, because she's being pushed up against the table. And I had only known her for about like a year at that point, and she already was like defending me, and everyone else in our class was just eating like lunch, like nothing happened. Maybe some were watching, but she like came and actually tried to help. At that point, he had put down the notebook, and well, I found out recently. I guess I forgot if she told me, but You
One of the girls said that he was saying that, murmuring under his breath that he was going to kill you, which is weird, dude. But I saw him coming. We were walking together, and I knew he was going to do something. I could see it, that something horrible was going to happen, or horrible to like a 5th grader. And I knew I couldn't let her get hurt because she didn't do anything. He had no reason to get angry. She didn't do anything wrong. So I went in front of her, and I've always been kind of tall. So like maybe, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't remember much of it, but I knew I could be bigger than her and maybe scare him or something. And you know when you get so freaked out and then you don't remember anything? I just remember that he pushed me. I thought I was on the table, but apparently I was on Issa.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
And was trying to choke me. He didn't know what he was doing because he was like pushing on my collarbones. Like, oh shit. Sorry. It was like pushing on my collarbones, but he was trying to choke me. And then the next thing I remember is him being a couple feet away from me, hysterically crying, with the lunch ladies being like, I know, it's okay, and like comforting him, which is weird.
I remember, I don't remember much either. I was closing my eyes and crying for most of it, and she was in front of me for a lot of it. But I remember at some point everything stopped. I wasn't being pushed on the table. I wasn't hearing like him screaming at her. I wasn't hearing other kids scream. And I looked, and the lunch lady was dragging him away by his arms. His face was all red. He was yelling at me and screaming, like, I'm gonna get you, like all this scary stuff. Like, I could tell he really did want to hurt me, and I didn't know why. And that really scared me, obviously. And he was being just dragged away and apparently comforted. I
remember that because it got me mad.
I was too busy crying to realize it, but I remember afterwards we were both crying. I'm pretty sure we were both crying, and I was crying because I thought I was gonna get in trouble. I didn't think like, oh, he's gonna get in trouble because he started it and he wanted to hurt me and he came after me, so he'll get in trouble. I was thinking more like, I'm gonna get in trouble because I was in a fight and I'm gonna get like suspended or something, and I'm not gonna be allowed to come here, and my mom's gonna get mad. And it was all like irrational stuff I was thinking. And the principal or some person came up to us who worked in the school and was like, don't worry, you two aren't in trouble. And I was like, oh, thank God we're not in trouble. And she went on to tell us that he wasn't going to get suspended or punished, or his parents probably weren't even going to get talked to, and that he was going to get to eat lunch with everyone else like a normal kid, and we were going to be alienated and have to eat lunch and monitor the kindergartners. And they just kind of tried to pass it off as like, oh, you're just being good students, so we thought it would be great for you to be with the kids, you know.
I'm just going to move to Alex. I'm sorry we don't have time to tell your story. I would just love for you to give our viewers some advice on dealing with bullying.
Yeah, no, I can cut to the chase.
Great.
Because something that I feel like it was a little different in my experiences is when I was growing up, my brother had more bullying problems, and I heard him talk to my mother a lot. And some of the advice that my mother gave him is things that I took to heart. I did get bullied when I was in school, particularly in high school. I was an overweight opera singer that wanted to be a priest. Like, I was a pretty prime target, at least I thought. But a lot of the advice that I heard and I think was very effective was, just understanding why they're doing it. The reason my mom always said was, they're just jealous of you, or they think they're better than you, or they're trying to get a rise out of you. That was the big one. They only do it because you react. So if you don't give them the satisfaction, they've no reason to bully you anymore. And that I took to heart for a while. What it wound up doing was I was a very sheltered kid in elementary school. In high school, I had a couple of friends in freshman and sophomore year, but they moved away, so I was left with very little. But for the most part, I just kept on a thick skin, which obviously is easier said than done. But if you build these habits of, trying to understand why these people do what they do and don't give them the satisfaction and talk to people about it. I never kept anything to myself. That was something I never had a problem with. I was always happy to talk to my mom about it. One of the things that I also had growing up was I had Tourette's syndrome growing up, which was a very sensitive topic for me. I could never talk about it in front of people until I got to like high school and college was I finally able to open up to people about that. And I went to therapy for it. I'm not saying everyone needs therapy, but if you're not comfortable talking to a parent or a friend, I found that talking to a complete stranger was actually extremely helpful. I went to therapy for two different points in my life, once for Tourette's syndrome and another time in college when I was just dealing with stress and friendship problems, which, you know, bullies come in many forms, elementary school, high school, college, and even now that I'm out of college, bullies, they're still around. They're just smarter and they use paperwork and fake smiles to get through to you instead. And I would always recommend to just stand up for yourself, you know, because it's worth it and you're able to, and people are gonna try and always get a rise out of you, no matter how old you are, no matter where you are. You just need to have a thick skin. You need to be aware of it. Knowledge is your friend. And with that, they're gonna be there. So just do your best to not interact with them as much as possible and do better things in your life than they are.
That's great advice. Well,
Thank you.
all three of you, thanks for joining me today. Thank you for telling us your stories, and thanks for your amazing advice. Today, we've covered a lot in reality. We've talked about bullying, how sensitive a topic it is for some people, but how developing a thick skin and expressing yourself in new ways is probably the best way to deal with it. Today, I was joined by three guests who are probably three of the bravest people I know, being willing to share their stories. Thanks for watching Reality.